As a visitor to Finch Paper, you should be aware of our dedication to safety. This video is intended for use as a brief overview to the Finch Prine Contractor Safety Manual. And while it does offer basic rules and requirements for outside contractors, detailed information is obtained by referring to the printed manual. Contractors are responsible for the review and implementation of all requirements and regulations published in this manual. Horseplay will not be tolerated. Immediate removal of the employee from Finch Prine property by the contractor will be mandatory for violation of this rule. Whenever a floor or wall opening is created or a handrail is removed from its normal location, a proper barrier and/or an attendant must be placed to guard the opening. Any guards removed from machinery or equipment must be replaced before activating the equipment. Contractors are not permitted to use Finch Prine equipment unless authorized by the Finch Prine contact. It is strictly prohibited for any contractor to buy, sell, or use alcoholic beverages, unauthorized drugs, or controlled substances that may impair the ability to work during working time on Finch Prine property. Any damage occurring to Finch Prine property must be reported immediately. Compressed gas cylinders must be secured and stored properly according to OSHA regulations. Safety caps must be secured on all cylinders not in use. For jobs requiring the use of X-ray or nuclear instruments, the contractor must contact Matt Gregory at extension 5494 before bringing the devices on site. Additional requirements are listed in Section 10 of the printed manual. Approved hard hats in good condition are required at all times in the woodroom and woodyard, and also during outages at the pulp mill and power plant. Elsewhere, hard hats are required whenever overhead work is being performed. Metal hard hats are not permitted in the facility. Contractors must provide employees with ANSI-approved safety glasses, which are required in all areas. Additional eye protection, such as face shields and goggles, must be provided when required. Contractors must provide employees with approved hearing protection to be worn in all designated areas. ANSI-approved safety shoes or boots must be worn at all times. Fall protection is mandatory where required by specific rules and regulations. The use of a full-body harness is mandatory in a situation where a fall would result in a person being caught by the lanyard. Contractors must provide an escape respirator to employees entering the pulp mill area or power plant. Employees must know its use limitations, as well as how to use and care for the escape respirator. Never use defective tools. Gas-powered tools or equipment shall not be used inside any building structure unless authorized by the Finch Prine Safety Department. OSHA regulations for equipment grounding must be followed. The use of ground fault circuit interrupters or GFCIs or an assured grounding program is required. Inspection and testing of the electrical power equipment must be performed as required by OSHA standards. Operators of powder-actuated tools must be authorized and possess valid credentials. When using extension cords, the use of GFCIs is required. Each contractor employee has the responsibility of inspecting equipment before its use. Defective equipment must be tagged and taken out of service. Never use ladders with missing, damaged, or broken rungs or split rails. Defective ladders must be removed from the job site immediately. While working from a ladder, it must be securely tied at the top to prevent slipping, or it must be secured at the base by a fellow employee. Ladders must be equipped with safety feet. Never use a ladder in a horizontal position as a platform or scaffold. A qualified person must supervise the erection of scaffolding. Signs must be provided stating scaffolding under construction or scaffolding complete. A floor wall opening handrail removal permit must be completed whenever a floor or wall opening is created or a handrail is removed from its normal location, causing a drop of 4 or more feet. The permit must be filled out and signed by the supervisor in charge of the opening after inspecting the work area. Specific requirements can be found in the policy manual. Seat belts must be worn at all times when riding in a vehicle equipped with seat belts. Passengers in the rear of a pickup truck must be seated within the confines of the bed of the truck. Riding on the side or on the tailgate of a pickup truck is prohibited. Only trained personnel shall operate an aerial lift. A full-body harness must be worn and a lanyard must be attached to the boom or basket when working from an aerial lift. Attaching to an adjacent pole, structure, or equipment while working from an aerial lift is not permitted. Additional requirements are found in the policy manual. No cranes are allowed on site without prior notification to the Finch Prime contact and security personnel. The crane must be escorted to the job site by the Finch Prime contact or a designee. Crane operators must be trained in accordance with OSHA regulations. Lift truck operators must work according to the safety rules. Never exceed the rated load capacity of a lift truck. Lift trucks must be equipped with seat belts, horns, rotating beacon lights, and backup alarms. The contract maintenance manager must be provided with a list of contractor personnel who are trained and authorized to operate lift trucks in accordance with OSHA standards. Smoking is prohibited except in designated areas. For details, consult the printed Contractor Safety Manual. Report any fire immediately by calling the mill emergency number at 611. Contractor employees must provide individual lockout over Finch Prime locks. Locks must be individually keyed and tagged with proper ID for each contractor employee. Specific details are provided in the Contractor Safety Manual. If the area in which a contractor will be working is designated as a confined space, entry is allowed only through compliance with OSHA standards and the Finch Prime Permit Space Program, which is available to you. Specific details are provided in the Contractor Safety Manual. Before using an electrical welding machine, it must be checked by a Finch Prime electrician. If required, plugs will be installed by Finch Prime electricians and will be removed and returned to Finch Prime upon completion of the contractor's job. A fire watch is required when hot work is being performed and for 30 minutes after the hot work is completed. Shields must be used on all hot work sites. Contractors who bring in chemicals must provide the Finch Prime contact with the proper material safety data sheets. Pipes are marked with special colored labels for easy hazard identification. Red with white characters for fire protection piping. Blue with white characters for non-hazardous gases. Green with white characters for non-hazardous liquids. Yellow with black characters for all hazardous materials. Orange tape with no text for all abandoned pipe. Any unknown insulation type material is to be treated as if containing asbestos. Contractor personnel are prohibited from removing or disturbing the insulation until it is determined to be asbestos-free. Therefore, it is mandatory that all insulation removals be discussed with the Finch prime contact prior to the start of work. OSHA studies show that cave-ins from excavation work are one of the most serious hazards of construction. An excavation permit is required whenever excavation work is being performed. For details, refer to the Finch Prime excavation policy. Any use of barrier tape should be kept to an absolute minimum and should impede only the immediate work area where the hazard exists. Yellow tape is used as a caution to warn employees of a potential hazard. Red barrier tape is used to warn of serious danger. Any use of barrier tape must include a properly completed Finch Prime barrier tape warning sign. Under no circumstance will barricade tape be crossed without permission from the employees that are creating or working within the hazard area. All barrier tape will be promptly removed when the hazard no longer exists. When a floor or wall opening hazard exists, fixed barricades shall be utilized, or a safety person shall be posted at the area. Barrier tape is not acceptable for floor or wall openings. Follow recommended OSHA standards and Finch Prime policy for guarding floor and wall openings. This policy establishes minimum standards for the use of fall protection equipment. The policy states that a fall protection system must be in effect on a walking, working surface when 6 foot or higher above floor or ground level. If personal fall arrest systems are used for this fall protection system, only full-body harnesses with lifelines attached to an acceptable anchorage are permissible. Safety belts are not to be used for fall protection. For full details, refer to Appendix E, Tab 21 of the Contractor Safety Manual. It is the responsibility of each contractor to familiarize themselves with the Finch Prime emergency evacuation procedures as identified in Tab 9 of your manual. The contractor should familiarize themselves and their contract employees with the escape routes and exits for the areas in which they are working. In the event of a fire or an uncontrollable chemical leak, immediately evacuate the area and call extension 611. When reporting an emergency, provide your name, the contractor company name, specific location, and nature of chemical leak or fire. Contractor employees evacuating the area shall report to a pre-designated location for a head count and await further instructions. Finch Prime manufactures chlorine dioxide on-site as needed. The process involves a combination of 3 chemicals, sodium chlorate, sulfuric acid, and methanol to produce the chlorine dioxide in gas form. The chlorine dioxide building is located at the extreme east end of the pulp mill area, commonly called the R8 plant. The storage tank of the chlorine dioxide is at the east end of the R8 building in the tank farm. Inhalation of chlorine dioxide may cause severe respiratory irritation or severe headaches. Contact with liquid on the skin can cause irritation. For more information, refer to MSDS. Finch Prime receives liquid sulfur dioxide in rail cars and in trucks. Sulfur dioxide is a severe pulmonary irritant which causes bronchial constriction. Contact with liquid sulfur dioxide will cause burns to the eyes and skin. For more information, refer to MSDS. Finch Training receives ammonia in tank cars. Inhalation of ammonia can cause irritation and inflammation, resulting in hoarseness and tightness of the throat. Skin contact with liquid pneumonia will cause irritation and possible severe burns. For more information, refer to MSDS. We receive 1-ton containers of liquid chlorine. The liquid is turned into gas in the chlorine evaporator. Chlorine hazards are mainly respiratory in nature. For details, refer to the MSDS. The pulp prep chlorine system has 2 parts. This room is located north of the generator room in a separate building that was built to house the 1-ton chlorine cylinders. The distribution panel in this room has 7 rotometers on it, 1 for each of the fresh water systems in the paper mill, power plant, and pulp mill. There is a separate rotometer for each of the 4 paper machines' whitewater systems. The 7th rotometer supplies the central whitewater tank in pulp prep. Contractors must evacuate the work area whenever an emergency alarm activates or when verbally informed to evacuate. In the event of a medical emergency, fire, or an uncontrollable chemical leak, call extension 611. As we mentioned at the start of this tape, this video is intended for use as a brief overview to the Finch Training Contractor Safety Manual. And while it does offer basic rules and requirements for outside contractors, detailed information is obtained by referring to the printed manual. We want your stay at Finch Training to be a safe one. The best safety record we can produce is when every person working in Finch Training makes a personal commitment to working safely every day. Think safety.